All right, good morning. Happy Friday, gentlemen. Bob here, back once again. Going to break down some Bitcoin, getting right down to it. Pretty straightforward, picking up from where we left off yesterday. You know, and I think I mentioned in the video yesterday that trying to figure out timing on this market is tough. So, as part of this move down 2 days ago, I really expected we would find temporary support here and then kind of bounce up to this range before coming back down. And instead, we just blew right through all of that 2 days ago, found some temporary support here, bounced up, ended up hitting 30,700, which is where I was expecting to see resistance come in on this candle, but it just never really retested 37 and then just totally dumped down. So, this was positive yesterday. We got a green day, and now today, as you can see, we're red, and we are already at or below yesterday's. This was the opening yesterday, but we're already back to below that. And really, the key to this becoming a green day is going to be for it basically not to end red, obviously, first and foremost, but the second most important thing being that it needed to hold this bottom and then reverse course and flip back to green. It doesn't look like that's going to happen. I mean, at best I can tell at the moment. So at that stage, I'll be preparing for, downside to here, 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 maybe even here. But yeah, I mean, it certainly looks like there's downside in play for today. Which, it might not be a terrible thing. I mean, and we talk about these little double bottom scenarios frequently. We've held this uptrend for, at least on the RSI, we held an uptrend since May 9th of, let's call it May 11th, and we've held an uptrend on the RSI. Now, all of a sudden, we're in a position where, and I could probably adjust this, right? Like I could probably make a few adjustments to this chart, and now all of a sudden it actually kind of fits a little better as far as trapping all of the price action in there. Now what I'm looking at here is the fact that this could form into a double bottom, and in the event that this thing does fall through here, chances are pretty good that at least initially we'll get some bullish divergence back out of it. So that's what I'm going to be looking for there, especially as I'm sitting here watching it just fall apart. I think that's a fairly logical thing would be to look for it'll have to come back up and close here to truly get a double bottom. But, as it falls throughout the day, I would expect that we may see this, we may see the candle actually touch here, wick back up, and then sell off before the day is out. It just depends. But that's really kind of the hope at this point would be that this thing does double bottom and we can reverse off out of there. But I don't, just looking at it and being realistic about it, I doubt highly that that's what we're looking at. So that being understood, I'm like I said, I'm fairly well prepared to see this thing go ahead and just dump a little further today. Let's just go ahead and we'll zoom in on the shorter term time frame just so we can take a look here. Let's actually get this chart pulled up here and use that one. So we got Bitcoin here on the hourly, and I think I can say that it seems we are forming here once you kind of connect some dots. So you've got this trend line here that was essentially the top of our bear pennant that we've been talking about. And really we more or less got just what I expected out of it. I mean, if we put the base on the, if we add a lower trend line here, we did actually come down out of the bear pennant, and I think it's a lot more obvious if you have the right time frame on here. But like let's say that we would have drawn a line right here, we fell out of the pattern, bounced back up into it, break out of pattern, retest yesterday, and now we're working on what looks to be a secondary retest. Now where this becomes incredibly problematic is in the event that we don't get a second retest here. And so we come down to 29.1 to 36, or this level right here, 29.1, let's call it, right? 29.2. We come down here and we don't put in a positive retest and we fall back down. That's where all of a sudden we're going to start talking about these levels down here that we've been talking about as feasible, right? If it loses this, I mean, again, this is where I would be a little more concerned. If we lose this right here, this is highly problematic in that, again, this whole thing then would be considered a bullish fake out, at which point we come back into here. And let's say that we draw a line across here, then all of a sudden you're probably coming down, touching down to 27,000 again. If we assume that the pattern is slightly different, then we can look at some other areas. But I mean, I think that would be the most logical. Again, still would be somewhere down in this range, 25, 26-ish thousand. So again, we need a positive retest. Now, the interesting thing about this, at least when I'm looking at it, is the fact that right now we've got this 4-hour trend line here, and again, you can see where it broke out, retested. Now we've got the back test of it. If this would be our double tap back test, right? If we come back down here and we tap this again, that's our double tap back test. That's what we want to see. I mean, that's actually what we would want to see. Problem is that I just, who knows if that ends up happening or not, or if it falls right back into the pattern. But we do, if we get a positive move out of there, say it comes down, tests there, and then it bounces up, breaks out right here, well, all of a sudden we're back to 31.5-ish again for a measured move. And that could really be the start of a more lasting uptrend, or again, it could just be a bearish retest of this line, and then more downside ensues. In terms of how this is all shaping up so far, let's go ahead and take a look at the weekly chart just real briefly and just kind of talk a little bit about that. We are still green on the week, so that's good. And again, like I'm saying, if we do come down here, my expectation would be, that from a daily standpoint, if we move down, we should end up getting a bullish divergence and or double bottom. So I think that, again, if we do put in a lower number here today, then hopefully we don't flip this into resistance, and then we go ahead and make a positive move over the weekend. And again, this is something we've seen before when we're trying to form a base. And again, I think this is a good kind of comparative area right here. Would be all right. So now again, we need for this candle to at least hold up. Like we if it comes down here, it needs to jump up immediately. Like it needs to bounce off this level so hard that it makes our head spin, right? But outside of that, as long as it holds that level by the end of the week, which again we got 2.5 days to go. If it holds that level just like that, then we can start to look at some next week being again some more potential upside at the very least. But again, it all starts by holding this level, and right now it doesn't. With 2.5 days to go, it doesn't look strong. Let's take a look at the SPX. Man, S&P had a big day yesterday. Honestly, I expected it would pull back a little further than it did. And then all of a sudden it gets down here to the bottom of this, and I said it the other day, 40.60 would probably hold up temporarily. It didn't even quite make it down to 40.60, and then it got this real nice double bottom right here. And you can see on the RSI it was kind of in this nice falling, broadening wedge, and then pop, double bottom right up out of there. Here's going to be where the issue may come into play, and that would be the simple fact that it made this move right back to the top of a pattern, right? Like that we're already in this kind of rising channel. Maybe we can call it a rising wedge, right? And it's just right back at the top of that rising wedge. And just to kind of show you what I'm talking about. So the rising channel, let's do it this way. Let's change this up a little bit. Let's call this the primary pattern, if you will. The the white lines that are not dashed. Okay, that would be the primary pattern, which in reality is really a bull or a bear flag again. Because our move into this pattern was a negative move, and now we're testing highs. But either way, what I'm looking at here, primary pattern, bear flag, secondary pattern is a rising wedge within there. Rising wedges break to the upside 1 out of 3 times approximately. When they break to the upside, they are parabolic. And if that were to happen, it would take it kind of up here, which would at that point blow by all these levels, which would be amazing, because that would actually prove that this area could or should act as support. Once it blows by these, comes back, retest, ball game. Alternatively, given that these patterns break down 2 out of 3 times, if we do, and let's say hopefully it holds on, all the way up through into the apex here, then the downside target would be the bottom of this bear flag. Then the question just becomes, do we hold this? Because a bear flag, the intention is that it's going to fall out through the bottom, and at which point we got some potential nastiness again. Now, how does this all play out? It's tough to say. But if we did, let's say that this pattern isn't going to hold up and we fall out of it, all of a sudden we're moving fairly close to a 1.618 fib level from this move to the downside here. And realistically, I could probably adjust this a little bit. I could probably make this adjustment here. And at that point, we haven't even tested the 382. We've been holding the 236. So this might be a more realistic representation. Either way, in the event that doesn't hold up, then we're coming down here to put in our retest at a lower level. Then we just need this to hold up, and that would be a fairly nice, actually, like large double bottom. And at that point, maybe we actually do put in a real nice rounded bottom. It just looks a little different than the original one, and it's this much bigger overall pattern. But this would be something that could potentially happen, especially since the S&P hasn't quite followed my path here. It did find its way up to here, which is where I figured it would get stopped out again, and we're going to find out here today what this ends up looking like. Pre-market is red, so I do expect that we're going to fall back to below here. And then it's just a matter of if this thing just keeps cascading down. And obviously that's not really what we want, but that might be what we end up getting nonetheless. So here we are, and we'll just have to deal with what is handed to us. But yeah, I'll be frank. I mean, I don't know how the S&P would manage to put in another positive day. If it does, I will be relatively surprised. But at the same token, I guess there is one thing I could say, and let me bring this chart back in. So anytime you get this red line crossing this gold line, or call it yellow, whatever you want. I'll call it gold simply because in my mind it's a golden cross, right? I mean, that's what this is. When you get the red crossing the gold, that's a golden cross. This could and or should push the price action up further. Is it going to happen? I don't know. Because again, I've seen plenty of times where the golden cross was incoming and then all of a sudden the market is dumping on itself. So I don't think it's a given that we're just going to get a golden cross that's going to turn into something amazing. We'll see. And I can actually show you a perfect example of a scenario where golden cross is not or did not play out accordingly, and that would be on the DXY here. So let's go ahead and pull that up briefly. So you got the Dixie here, and I always look at this chart on the weekly. I have no interest in staring at this chart on a day-to-day basis, which, as a side note, it did get a decent little bounce here on top of the breakout. But that being stated, this was a golden cross right here, right? You can see exactly where it crossed, and it actually started coming back down. So the golden cross is not always a given. Moving averages are they're lagging indicators. So it's not necessarily a given that when you have this golden cross incoming that it's actually going to continue to lead to positive price action. And again, because this may already have been factored in. Interestingly on the Dixie here, it's kind of tough to really tell how many bases were built here. When you get a parabolic move, the way that parabolas work is you get 5 total bases built, and then after the 5th one is complete, it's a dump. So if we looked at this and said, all right, well, this is maybe 1, 2, this might be 3. Ideally, this is not 3. I'll just put it that way. Ideally, this is not 3. If this is 3, the next move is actually going to be the most explosive one, and then it'll build a 4th base. It would be a small pop, and then it would dump. And that's the only thing is when I look at this, it's tough to tell really what could qualify as a solid base. If the bases started back here, this could be 1. This whole area could be 2, then 3, 4. This was 5. Dump. We're gonna find out real soon, but this would be positive. Let's just keep this thing coming back. That would be nice. But we'll see what happens as far as that all goes. And again, on the weekly, it's still tough to tell. Maybe this was 1, 2, 3, 4. Big move. 5. This could have been 3. It's tough to say, and at the end of the day, we'll just kind of have to. It doesn't 100% directly impact us anyway, but it does have an impact overall on the macro picture, which ultimately does have an impact. But all right, let's get out of there. And like I said, as far as Bitcoin, and let's just kind of wrap this up, get back to Bitcoin. Again, the big thing is we really got to hold on to this lower level right here today, or got to find a way to fall below it and then pop back up to it. We shall see. Don't love what I see at the moment because, again, we're already, with half a day to go, we're already putting a lot of pressure on this lower end here, and it's already down below it. The likelihood that it holds on seems fairly slim, so I'm just going to prep for more downside today. Logically speaking, it seems like it would be the case, and then we'll go from there. But yeah, that downside target for today is going to be here. Upside target would be no higher than this level. And I doubt highly we're going to be testing this part out. But if we do, that'll be great because, again, that would just prove it would validate the idea that not only are we in an uptrend at this point, but then, in fact, we, even after this big move to the downside, we managed to go ahead and put in a higher low than over here, which, again, would confirm a sustainable uptrend. But that's in danger at the moment. So we shall see how that goes. But ideally, we just get a bounce off here today and start rocking and rolling. Again, getting in on the short-term time frames here, though, you can see the bears are certainly fighting here. And I guess maybe the bulls too, because here you got this was a decent turnaround right here temporarily. You can see the bulls bought this right up, gave us some positive price action, but then you can see here the bears just said nope. we are going down further. So here we go. Couldn't break out of oversold territory on the 15. Yeah, we got some more downside in store for sure. And then it's just a matter of where do we hold. Ideally, this would be the next place that holds, but in the short term, I can't say that anything will. Again, and wow, yeah, that's as we're sitting here watching that, isn't that great? But yeah, this will probably be the more likely scenarios, this 786 retracement here. And yeah, we can just sit here and watch it dying on the screen. So, but yeah, that's what I'm looking at this point. Is that this is likely not going to stop here. Here you can see it touched that line. I'm going to assume it's going to touch here again. If it loses that line, that's where we're talking about death and destruction. Not literal death and destruction, but this is not what we want. We don't want to see it break back into this line. So again, just to reiterate that, keep an eye on about 29,000 a day. We lose 29,100 or so. It's super problematic, and definitely more downside would ensue from there. So yeah, that's pretty much where we're at today. I guess, like I said, given what the S&P looks like, and then given what this looks like right now, I am fully anticipating more downside versus any type of immediate upside. I could, with this being a 15-minute chart, I mean, maybe this thing could pop up into here again, kind of come down, maybe make this a little more reasonable, but it certainly looks like it just wants to dump out of here. Kind of maybe a bit of an expanding, falling wedge kind of a look. So maybe we would get a kind of push over to here and then a real nasty drop. But we'll see. But again, I'm just anticipating more downside versus this thing ripping back up to the upside in the short term. But again, if we can hold this level and start recovering back up, I'd feel pretty decent about what the weekend would look like, because that would then give us a nice double bottom here, and then you would think, all right, well, if we got this, and I talked about this a little bit yesterday too, how I was looking for a 4-hour double bottom to take place, which technically it sort of happened right here, and then it just got bought right up, and then here's where we should have gotten the official one, and you can see that did not happen, and it's already got the downside in play. So again, just reiterating that once we lost this level, it seems fairly evident that downside is incoming. So just going to keep watching this for now. I guess, by having lost this level, short would make sense. But again, you're looking at maybe shorting down to here, so a couple $100 on Bitcoin there. So the question becomes now, do you wait and hope that this thing turns into support when it gets down there, or do you then open a short once you've broken back into this pattern and cost yourself $600 right off the rip? Tough to say. And again, that's always going to be the problem is knowing, or feeling like for sure which way it's going and how soon it's going to happen. But in either case, that's what I got for you. I'm hopeful that we get another good weekend in, but just to be frank, it doesn't look amazing at the moment, so I'm not going to hold out hope for it, but certainly going to try and look for it and hope that it works out. But again, I don't, it just doesn't look very good at the moment. So, let's hope. 29,000. Everybody keep that 29.1 in mind. Send your prayers out to the Bitcoin market maker gods, whatever you want to call it. And otherwise, hey, we'll just watch some red this weekend. But hey, we appreciate you guys. We are looking forward to getting back on the big wins. Obviously, we know everybody got to see updates, and still a very positive month overall. So no complaints in that regard. But definitely looking forward to getting back to the big months like the months prior. So, hey, we appreciate you guys. Enjoy your weekend. Talk soon.